And I'm Sequiera in Baltimore, Maryland for the People's Daily.
Today, November 4th, 1979, a task force aiming to bring home American hostages trapped in the American embassy in Tehran is discussing the quickly progressing Iranian revolution. This revolution is posing many security issues to the United States and directly affects the American-Iranian relationship.
This revolution was begun by many student activists and soon caught on with many other Iranian citizens. The revolution was sparked against the so-called totalitarian rule of Mohammad Reza Shah Pahlavi.
During our visit to the committee, it was clear that tensions are running high. The main conflict is between those who wish to send aid to the revolutionaries and those who wish to wash their hands of Iran in general. The following clip is from this afternoon's committee.
Support behind Directive 2.1. That I'm questioning whether you're putting the interests of the Iranian citizens above the interests of the American citizens, those citizens who we are serving at this very moment. I mean, I'm questioning your loyalty to this country now. I'm questioning everything about you. Directive 2.2 is by far the most American directive, by far the best directive, and for those who do not support Directive 2.2, I fear you may be a communist. Thank you.
There's been much talk of how Directive 2.1, by implementing democratic elections, would incite stability in the region. I do not believe, and I don't think anyone here believes, that stability is worth the stability Iran would face would be stability that the USSR has undergone. It's not worth the stability of the Iron Curtain to implement some peace in the Middle East. Look at what's happened every time the USSR has incited stability in a country. 30 million people died in Russia. People have been massacred in Greece and Turkey. Every country which is under the USSR's dominance and is supposedly stable has only seen increased massacres, increased human rights violations, and decreased stability, and ultimately causes a further problem for the world.
Some delegates cited the need for fair elections and the prevention of voter fraud. Many delegates wished to send peacekeepers and to stabilize Iran. President Jimmy Carter is one such individual who would like to negotiate with the Shah and promote democratic elections. So we're sitting down with Jimmy Carter. So why are you supporting Directive 2.1?
I think that it really encompasses American ideals. I value humanitarian ideals and human life, and Directive 2.2 does not value these things. Reinstalling a dictator in Iran would be very destructive to the people. They do not like the Shah, they don't want the Shah, and installing him would create violent protests, while 2.1 installs democracy there, which America promotes around the world.
Mr. McMahon called you unpatriotic for not supporting American interests. What is your response to this?
My response to that is I think Mr. McMahon is forgetting his ideals as a leader, as an American leader. American ideals include installing democracy. We are a democracy, and America is one of the primary leaders in this Cold War ridden world, and I think he's forgetting that we should be spreading democracy, and while we need to be interested in security there, we also need to think about what's best for the Iranian people.
Do you think that through democratic elections, the Iranian people will choose the quote-unquote right leader?
They may not choose the leader that would be in America's best interests. However, Directive 2.1 would also be installing countries that are allied with us in the region that would promote our interests and promote security in the Middle East. In addition, 2.1 installing democracy is a longer-term solution to the problem, or 2.2's installing democracy, and where 2.2 goes wrong is that it creates problems rather than solutions. It's a short-term solution to a long-term problem.
Would you say tensions are running high in your committee right now?
Yes, between Directives 2.2 and 2.1, I would say the supporters are very heated on which solution is correct.
Deputy Secretary of Defense William Claytor belongs in the group of delegates who believe that diplomacy towards Iranian revolutionaries is a, quote, waste of time. CIA Deputy Director John Norman McMahon agreed that any kindness towards Iran would be the most unpatriotic thing he's ever heard of. Currently, he is arguing against Directive 2.1, which would promote democratic elections for Iranian citizens. He supports Directive 2.2, which would reinstate the Shah. We caught up with Mr. McMahon to hear his thoughts on this topic. Mr. McMahon, I hear that you were responsible for the death of 3 CIA agents over last night when you were trying to solve the Iranian hostage crisis. How are you feeling about that?
It's quite the unfortunate situation. I accidentally had them killed when I sent them to Iran on a secret mission to assassinate civilians and blame it on the Iranian government. They did not return alive. I have received the names of the 3 dead agents, and I have sent condolence letters to their family, and us as a committee, we voted on them in a press release and released them, and they were quite good. But our condolences do go out to all members affected by the incident, and I sincerely apologize.
What a tragedy. So you are advocating for the reinstatement of the Shah. Now, you come from America where you promote freedom. Why do you feel that putting the Shah back in power is favorable? Isn't that bad for the Iranian citizens?
Ultimately, it's our duty as a committee of Americans to look after American interests first. We feel that is the most patriotic thing to do, and the Shah protects American interests far more than any other leader would at this point. So we feel that in order to protect American citizens and not Iranian citizens, we need to reinstate the Shah.
Okay, so why are you so against Directive 2.1?
Well, Directive 2.1 calls for UN peacekeepers to set up democratic elections in Iran, and we feel that infringes on Iranians' sovereignty to establish their own ruler, as well as we are worried about the ruler that may be chosen out of these democratic elections, and we are afraid that if someone like the Ayatollah was to be elected from these elections, that they would not be favorable towards America, and this may create more conflict in the future.
Okay. So would you say that tensions are running high in your committee?
I would say tensions are running high. I mean, I think there's a good atmosphere. We're starting to get really close to one another. It's been several months now in committee sessions. So we're a tiny group of people, but there's a lot of tension over whether or not to allow democratic elections or to reinstate someone of our choosing. But I think ultimately it'll work out in the end. I'm not too worried about it.
I heard you using some pretty strong rhetoric in there. Do you feel like that is helping your cause, or do you think that's turning people against you?
I think the rhetoric I'm using is not strong enough. I think if the people in there were as much of a patriot as I am, they would be using similar rhetoric. But I definitely feel it's helping the cause. I think it's only gathering support from the American people for our actions.
Can you give us an example of what you would say if you were being completely honest? And you could use any rhetoric you wanted to.
If I was being completely honest, I think some of the members of my committee are the most communist people I've ever met in my life. I think.
And communist is a bad thing.
Communist has been a bad thing since I can remember.
Oh. We're Chinese communists, but that's okay. Keep going.
Anyway, I feel that the people in there just do not understand the true values of Americanism. I think they may also be very short, but that just bothers me on a personal level. And I think Jimmy Carter may just be a little nuts from all his peanut farming. So, otherwise, I think I'm the most American person in there by far. I'm the only one who truly cares about American citizens.
Good to hear. Thank you for meeting with us, Mr. McMahon.
Whatever resolution may be reached by this task force, it is clear that the Americans do not have respect for the national sovereignty of Iran. They continue to meddle in the business of other nations while they have many troubling matters at home.
It seems that the United States refuses to address any benefits of communism and ignores the possibility that a communist regime could lead to a stable Iran. From Baltimore, I'm Emily Armstrong for the People's Daily.
And I'm Catalina Sequiera.